The forbidden book of the Bible, the book of Enoch. There is a book so dangerous that religious leaders decided to hide it from you for almost 2,000 years. Not destroy it, hide it. And the reason they hid it will make you question everything you thought you knew about the Bible, about angels, about where evil actually came from, and what is really coming. This is the book of Enoch, and after today, you'll understand why they didn't want you reading it. Let me take you back, way back, before Noah, before the flood, before almost everything you've read in Genesis. There was a man named Enoch, and unlike almost everyone else in the Bible, Enoch never died. Genesis 6:24 says it simply, God took him. He just disappeared, walked with God, and was gone. Most people skip past that line. It's only one sentence, but that one sentence is the doorway to one of the most detailed, most shocking, and most mysterious texts that ever existed in the ancient world. Enoch didn't just disappear. According to his own book, he was taken up into the heavens. He was given a tour. He saw things no human was ever supposed to see. And then he came back and wrote it all down. That book survived for thousands of years. It was read by early Christians. It was quoted in the Bible itself. In the book of Jude, one of the apostles of Jesus directly quotes the book of Enoch word for word. And yet, at some point, a group of powerful religious leaders sat in a room together and decided, this one doesn't make the cut. Why? What is in this book that made them so uncomfortable? Let's find out. The story begins with one of the most disturbing passages in all of ancient literature. You might remember a couple of lines in Genesis 6, right before the flood story. It says that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took them as wives. Most people gloss over this part. It feels confusing, vague, almost out of place. The book of Enoch doesn't gloss over it. It goes all in. According to Enoch, these sons of God were angels, but not just any angels. They were a group of 200 angels called the Watchers, and they made a pact together. They swore an oath on a mountain called Mount Hermon. The oath was this: we are going to go down to earth, take human women, and have children with them. The leader of these Watchers was an angel named Semyaza. And what happened next, according to Enoch, is the origin story of almost everything wrong with the world. The Watchers came down. They had children with human women. And those children, they were giants. The text calls them the Nephilim. They were enormous. Some descriptions say they were hundreds of feet tall. They ate all the food. Then they ate the animals. Then they started eating people. And that's not even the worst part. One of the other Watchers, named Azazel, taught humans things they were never supposed to know. He taught men how to make swords and knives and shields. He taught women how to use makeup and jewelry to seduce. He taught humans about astrology and the cutting of roots, what we might call witchcraft or dark arts today. In the book of Enoch, Azazel is basically the original source of sin in the material world. And this is a massive theological statement, because it shifts the blame for human corruption away from just Adam and Eve and places a significant part of it on these fallen angels who deliberately poisoned humanity. The earth became so violent, so corrupt, so full of suffering, that the cries of humanity rose up all the way to heaven. 4 archangels heard it: Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, and they came before God and said, look at what's happening down there. Look at what Azazel has done. Look at what the Watchers have caused. And God responded. This is one of the most powerful parts of the book, and it reads almost like a courtroom scene mixed with a cosmic war. God sends Raphael to bind Azazel. He is thrown into a pit in the desert, in a place called Dudael, and buried under rocks. He waits there in darkness until the final judgment. God sends Gabriel to deal with the Nephilim, the giant children of the Watchers, but not by killing them directly. Instead, God tells Gabriel to let them destroy each other, set them against one another. Let them fight until none of them are left standing. And then God sends the flood, not just as a punishment, but as a cleansing, a reset. But here is where the book of Enoch says something that almost no other text says. The spirits of the Nephilim, those giant half-human, half-angel beings, did not go to heaven when they died. They couldn't. They were something in between, something that didn't belong in either place. So their spirits stayed here, on earth. And according to Enoch, those spirits became what we call demons. Think about that for a second. The book isn't just telling a wild story about giants. It is offering an explanation for why the world is full of spiritual darkness. Where did demons come from? According to Enoch, they were never fallen angels. They were the dead children of fallen angels, trapped here, looking for bodies to inhabit, causing sickness, leading people into sin. Spreading chaos, because that is all they know how to do. This is why early Christians took this book very seriously. It gave answers to questions that Genesis left wide open. But that is only the first part of Enoch's story. After witnessing all of this, Enoch is taken on a journey through the heavens. And this is where the book gets almost impossible to describe without reading it yourself. He is guided by angels through different levels of the cosmos. He sees the place where the stars are kept before they rise. He sees enormous mountains of fire and ice. He sees a great abyss, a void of darkness, where something ancient and terrible waits. He sees the place where the souls of the dead wait, separated into different sections based on how they lived. There are 4 hollow places in this waiting area. 1 is for the righteous, who are at peace and full of light. 1 is for sinners, who were never punished during their lifetime, and they wait in torment. 1 is for sinners who were somewhat punished already, and their suffering is less intense. And 1, the darkest, most sealed-off section, is for people like the Watchers, the worst of the worst. This is interesting because it's an early picture of what we later see in the New Testament as concepts like Hades and paradise. Some Bible scholars believe Jesus himself drew from these ideas when he told the story of the rich man and Lazarus, where the dead are separated and can see each other from a distance, but cannot cross. Enoch also sees the final judgment. He sees a throne of fire and glory. He sees the Ancient of Days, a figure so powerful and so bright that description almost fails. He sees thousands upon thousands of angels surrounding this throne, and he sees a figure beside the throne called the Son of Man, a being chosen before the creation of the world, who will eventually judge everyone, angels, demons, humans, all of them. This language, Son of Man, is one of the titles Jesus uses for himself in the Gospels more than any other title. And scholars have long debated whether Jesus was deliberately referencing the book of Enoch when he said it. So here is the question you are probably asking right now. If this book is so important, if it's quoted in the Bible, if early Christians read it, why is it not in the Bible today? The answer is complicated and a little bit political, and honestly, a little frustrating. Around 300 to 400 AD, church leaders gathered several times to decide which books would be included in the official Christian Bible. These councils looked at many writings, many Gospels, many letters, many texts that circulated among early Christians, and they made choices. Some of those choices were theological, some were practical, some were political. The book of Enoch raised too many questions. It introduced a detailed spiritual world that was hard to control. It suggested that angels could rebel not just once, like Lucifer, but in large groups, for specific earthly desires. It gave too much power and detail to the origin of evil. Some leaders felt it opened doors that they didn't want opened. There was also a debate about authorship. Could this really have been written by Enoch himself? If Enoch lived before the flood, this would make his book older than any other text in the Bible. Some argued it must be a fake, a later Jewish text written in Enoch's name to add authority. Others argued that didn't matter, that the content was still inspired and true. In the end, most branches of Christianity left it out, but not all of them. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church kept it. To this day, the Book of Enoch is part of their official Bible canon. Ethiopia is one of the oldest Christian nations on earth. Christianity arrived there in the 4th century, and they never stopped reading Enoch. They kept it. They believed it. They passed it down for over 1,500 years. And in 1773, a Scottish explorer named James Bruce traveled to Ethiopia and brought 3 copies of the full Book of Enoch back to Europe. The world rediscovered it. Scholars went wild, because here was this text, ancient, preserved, extraordinary, that the rest of the world had almost completely forgotten. Now, there's one more thing about this book that almost nobody talks about, and I think it might be the most important part. Toward the end of the Book of Enoch, there is a section that reads almost like prophecy. Not just prophecy about the ancient world, but about the end of all things. Enoch describes a time in the future when evil will reach its peak, when corruption will cover the earth the same way it did before the flood, when lies will be treated as truth, and truth will be hated, when the Watchers and their spiritual offspring will have one last moment of power, and then judgment comes, not just for humans, for every fallen angel, for Azazel, who is still buried in that desert pit, for Semyaza and the other Watchers, for every spirit that ever caused harm or led a person away from light. All of them face the throne. And after the judgment, Enoch describes a new earth, a restored world, a place without the darkness that was injected into it, a place where the righteous finally inherit what was always meant to be theirs. If you've read the book of Revelation in the New Testament, a lot of this should sound very familiar. That's not a coincidence. John, the writer of Revelation, almost certainly knew the book of Enoch. The imagery, the language, the structure, the similarities are undeniable. So what do we do with all of this? The book of Enoch is not in most Bibles. That's a fact. Whether or not that was the right decision, that's a debate that has been going on for centuries and will probably never fully be settled. But what's also a fact is that this book shaped how early Christians understood angels, demons, evil, judgment, and the end of the world. It's not some fringe document. It's not some cult text. It was read by people who walked with Jesus, by people who wrote letters that are in your Bible right now. Jude quotes it. Peter appears to reference it. Jesus himself may have drawn from its language. The people who decided to keep it out made a choice. But the people who kept reading it, the Ethiopians, the early church fathers, the scholars who have studied it for the past 2 centuries, they looked at this book and saw something real, something that fills in the gaps, something that makes the rest of the story make more sense. The book of Enoch is not the Bible, but for thousands of years, for millions of people, it was part of the conversation. And now that you know it exists, now that you know what's in it, you can decide what to do with that yourself. If this kind of deep dive is something you want more of, subscribe so you don't miss the next one.